All right, we're gonna dive into it, guys. All right, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cover the basics of what a trust is. Um, I'm gonna try my best to simplify everything, right? I'm gonna go through each module and we'll cover what a trust is, right? The privacy of a trust, right? And what it comes with. And then we're gonna go through each type of trust. So we'll go through the irrevocable, the revocable, and the land trust. And then we'll dive right into creating your very first trust, right? So I'm going to get you to understand what all this stuff is so you can have general basis and an idea of what it is that we're, teaching today. And then we're going to go step by step. Like I'll create a fake trust right in front of you guys. And then I'll also show you an example of a completed trust so that you guys have a true visual of what it would look like so you don't having any doubts. So all of this is going to be open book, and you guys are really going to get the material firsthand so that when it comes time for you to create your trust, it feels easy, right? You're not having to overthink it because it's not that hard, guys. I actually didn't realize how easy it was until I started going through the motions and I was studying it, and I realized that your revocable trust can be simple as possible and you can make it more structured later down the road. It could be, months from now or even years from now. It all really depends on your time and your situation. So, but the secret is getting it done and having it so you're already protected from it, right? And then we're gonna go right into opening up a trust bank account after creating it. And then we'll dive into a little bit of frequently asked questions. For the most part, that's just for you guys in the campus to really look through. I wouldn't really get too deep into that. I really want to just get the material um, right out to you so you guys can get a real strong understanding on how to create a trust. So to get started, guys, what is a trust, right? So the trust is an arrangement where a person who is the trustee, right? So the trustee in this particular case is going to be it's going to be you, right? And the trust is going to be your all caps name because you're going to be the trustee of your trust. Your trust is your all caps name. And that's what I'm encouraging everyone to start with for a trust. Then later on, you guys, if you have a house or if you have, um, you know, children you want to, pass some of your assets down to, you can start thinking about creating, land trusts or irrevocable trusts. But we'll get into that later in the call. But for right now, right, we're talking about you creating your very first trust for your all caps name so that you can be trustee of. Because right now, nobody's a trustee of your all caps name and it's free for all. So it holds and manages properties or assets for the benefit of another person, the beneficiary, right? Which, you're also the beneficiary, right? You're the trustee and the beneficiary. And I'm explaining to you why, because you're the trustee of your own all caps name. And because you're the trustee, you're the beneficiary because you have assets in there, right? You have assets in there and you are putting, for example, your house that your all caps name acquired with the social from his trust. And that house is being managed by you, who's a trustee, but you're the beneficiary because you're living in it, right? You're the beneficiary because you're living in it. Same thing with you applying for a credit card, right? You're accessing the funds in a trust when you get approved for a credit card because you're the trustee. You applied to a bank, and the bank was your trustee. But because you're a trustee of your trust, you are also the beneficiary and you're receiving those funds from your trust. So the person who creates the trust is called a grantor. So the grantor in this case is going to be the all caps name. But you, the trustee, are creating the trust on behalf of the grantor, right? Because you're the agent. Because the all caps name can't create a trust for itself, right? We established that on yesterday's call when we discussed you changing your status, your actual government name that they gave you when they start sending you letters and tickets and etc. If you don't respond, right, it's technically not you who they sent it to. They sent it to the company. But most people respond for the company. And that's really what it means. So trust and contracts form the foundation of modern financial and economic systems and understand their roles to help shed light on how these systems operate. So I'm going to go through, guys, the history of what a trust is and how it got built. So a trust is a foundation. It's a core everything boils down to, right? You guys are familiar with the term "in God we trust," right? How many of you guys have heard of "in God we trust"? And where did you hear it from? And if you're not sure, you could take a guess.
Say that one more time.
In God we trust.
What about it?
Where have you guys seen it or heard it?
On our
On a
dollar
dollar?
bills.
Exactly. It's on our dollar bills. So everything boils down to trust, guys. From the money that we are borrowing, right? Which is being lent to us via debt, right? It's debt that we're borrowing. It's all given to us based on trust, right? Because the US dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the government rather than physical assets like gold. So, in other words, you, me, are more valuable than money itself because money itself has no value, right? It's not backed by gold and silver. It's backed by faith, by full faith and credit. That's literally what the US dollar is. So the trust, so the value of the money relies on trust, fully on trust. And the trust is that it will be accepted as payment and trust in the systems that regulate it. We move on to contracts and trust. So trusts are another form of a contract, or a contract is another form of a trust. So whenever you go into a contract with someone, it's just like you paying someone money with a promissory note. All of it is an exchange based on trust, right? It's just one is different from the other, but they all have same they all serve the same purpose, right? They're all a trust. So when two parties enter a contract, right, they agree to a certain term or conditions relying on the other party to fulfill the obligation, right? And I taught you guys this before that a payment isn't actually giving someone money. That's not really a payment. A payment is fulfilling a promise, right? It's fulfilling a promise, right? I've seen situations where um I believe there was a court case that had been won in Supreme Court where a gentleman had made a payment with like beans or something. It was beans or flour. He brought like a ton of beans because it was a form of payment, right? He paid them with goods. And it stood in court because he fulfilled part of the promise, right? He may not have paid him in a specific type of currency where he didn't use the promissory note. He paid with, I can't even remember it, but it was either like flour or beans. But either way, he used goods like a commodity to make a payment. Because you have to remember back in the day, guys, people used to barter. You ever watch any of those old Western movies, right? A lot of those people will like they'll trade you like four sheeps for two cows. Like that's payment, guys. That's fulfilling a promise. Hey, I'll give you these two sheep if you give me one cow. Now you just created a contract. It's a verbal contract. Now, how can you fulfill that contract, right? You have to trust that that person is gonna pull through and give you that cow when you give him the two sheep. It's all based on trust, right? So, however, while the contracts an element of trust. Not all contracts are trusts. A trust is a specific type of legal relationship where one party holds assets on behalf of another beneficiary, right? Interestingly, the rules governing contracts form a foundation for creating and managing trusts. So basically, a trust is set up similar to the way contracts are set up because of the fact that the trust itself has to have some sort of structure similar to a contract. And when you read a contract, they have the terms and conditions and the requirements and it's very, very structured, right? The same thing with the trust. The trust has to be, formed a specific type of way in order for it to actually hold ground, right? And it has to be presented very accurately, similar to a contract where if you don't include a certain clause or you don't include specific instructions in the contract, somebody can bend around it, right? And you guys are familiar with this. Um, it's a little bit outside of, the contract discussion, but think of it like Donald Trump when he had a debate with Hillary Clinton, right? And Hillary Clinton was like, well, Donald Trump doesn't pay his taxes. And Donald Trump was like, well, if that's a problem, then fix the tax codes, right? If if the tax codes are allowing me to get away with this, then fix them. But you don't want to fix the tax codes because all of the beneficiaries and all of Hillary's friends were benefiting from the tax codes. There was a way around the taxes through the tax codes that he was leveraging. Same thing with the contract. If you're actually going through a contract and it's missing something, you can bend around it. And that's why it has to have a specific foundation so that there's really no way around it. You want a strong agreement, strong contract, so that when you're creating your trust, it can stand, right? So your family doesn't have to deal with probate and it doesn't need to go to court. It's as strong as it needs to be because it has everything it requires, right? So that's what this last piece means, right? That the contracts form a foundation for creating and managing trust. So the historical perspective, right? This goes back to the Bill of Exchange Act in 1881, guys. Um, And the Bill of Exchange Act was drafted to standardize and regulate how business transactions were conducted. So countries like US, New Zealand, Arizona, or Australia, Mexico, and Canada needed a reliable system for international trade. This act laid the groundwork for negotiating or transferring financial instruments such as the bills of exchange and promissory notes, right? It's exactly what we're talking about. The bills of exchange are remember what they transitioned into when they got rid of gold and silver. They eliminated gold and silver because they couldn't use it to get out of debt. So they transitioned into bills of exchanges and promissory notes, and that's where the US dollar came about. Right? It created a framework for trust and cooperation between nations in commerce. So this is like a major turn in history, right? Because ever since this had happened, people no longer were paying with gold and silver, and those who did, it was probably limited or they were just storing gold and silver. But the entire payment system and the way people pay completely changed from that day forward. And this is all comes down to trust. And this is why when we're discussing the topic of trust, right, and understanding the history around trusts, right, it all stems from the same thing that we've been talking about in this campus and I've been teaching you guys about the definition of money because money is not real, right? Money is not real in the United States for the simple fact that it's backed by full faith and credit. And that's not really anything tangible, right? it holds no value. So the role of banks and private credit. All right, banks play a huge role in the financial system, and they primarily sell, negotiate, and transfer securities. So when you extend your private credit, remember, guys, it's private. That's your credit. You extend your private credit, right? It's initially meant for private purposes, guys. However, the system operates in such a way that if you don't assert your rights over private credit, the system can claim it for its benefits. I mean, that's pretty clear in itself because they're doing it right now. And reason why we have to create this trust is because we have to assert our rights by claiming ourselves, right? By processing the correct paperwork, submitting a trust document, right? And putting them on notice, right? You're notifying them that I have a trust. I own this trust. You don't have a right to make decisions on this trust. You can't close my bank account that's connected to this trust. It's all private matters because it's private credit. But because what we are doing right now is we're going and opening up a public bank account, right? And we're doing everything in public, then they can shut down our public account. They can control our public account, right? They can legally go around to have your money frozen or your bank's frozen, right? We have celebrities like Kanye West, Adidas went around and legally found a way to, freeze his bank account, right? Freeze his Apple Pay. And he had millions of dollars in his Apple Pay. And Adidas went around and did that because his account was public. But if his account was in a trust, it would have been a completely different story because you got to go to court to even start fighting for access to getting into anybody's account. And that would take years depending on how you layer it, right? If you layer it correctly and you have LLC structure, the holding company structure, and then your trust, then they got to go through every single layer to penetrate you. But in this particular case, when you're creating things like a trust and you're claiming the name and you're claiming the fact that it's private, it's yours, the system can't go around it. And then now you get to assert your rights. So this is really the end goal here. The end goal here is we're heading in the right direction to start asserting our rights and putting our foot down. Because right now we can put our foot down, guys, and trust me, I've done it. I've sent I've sent letters upon letters upon letters, guys, for you know credit denials and challenge them. I've done everything in the book, guys. Right? I've crafted some of the best letters that I thought I'd ever created, and just to send it to them, and they don't even know what it means. All right? They don't know what it means. And that's because we're dealing with the wrong people. There's the public and there's the private, right? And you're going to become private when you have a trust and you claim your name. You completely start becoming private because if there's one thing for certain is once you have a trust, guys, nobody can know about it. And in order for someone to get access to your trust and get the information that you have on your trust, they need a warrant, right? They literally need a warrant if they're going to demand your trust. So they have to get a warrant and they have to have a reason to get a warrant. That's how powerful the trust is. They have to go to that extent to get access to your trust. Is all of that making sense so far? I just want to make sure I didn't lose anybody.
Yes, it does.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. So commercial transactions, private trust. So current system logs most transactions as commercial debts, right? And to the Federal Reserve Bank. So this process benefits the system rather than individuals unless they actively manage their private credit. By staying away from commercial credit transactions or asserting private rights, individuals could potentially reclaim control over their credit. So, what it says here is everything that we're currently doing right now, like opening up a bank account with, Wells Fargo, and we're, transacting with them and we're making payments and money is going in and out. all of those transactions are currently being logged as public, right? Those are all public transactions and they're commercial debts. But because they're being logged that way, it's because we allowed it to be public. We haven't yet taken control to make it private. So in order to stay away from this stuff, we have to, again, file the proper paperwork and create a private bank so that all of our information is no longer made public. Everything is private, right? No one knows what assets you're transferring. No one knows what money you're transferring to your family. No one knows any of that stuff, guys. Right? Just you and your beneficiaries, the people that you have listed on there. Right? And the only reason why they know this is because they have to be there when you're signing with them. Right? So what we're doing in this case is we're simply no longer allowing all the transactions to be commercial. We are now going to be transitioning over to the private side, right? We're taking over our private rights. So historically, the monarch, right, king or queen, right, could not be taxed on their money. This principle is tied to the idea that ultimately the wealth originates from people. Guys, I want you to hear that again. The wealth originates from people. I bring this example up, quite a number of times. If you think about it, every time you go to the bank and you apply with your credit, with your social security card, the bank needs that, right? When you're like, hey, I want a loan, what are they going to ask you for? Your social, okay? So let's just pretend that everyone just didn't need credit. They were just like, oh, I'm good. I got a little bit of money saved up in cash. I don't need the bank for a couple months, a few months, maybe a year. Everybody, these banks would shut down. The banks would be done. But people are so fearful right now, guys, that they just fear what's going to happen to their money. They fear not keeping their money in the bank. They think the banks are the ones in control, when in reality, we're the ones. All we need to do is not use them, and they don't exist. It's that simple, right? We are the originators of wealth, guys. We are more valuable than the money itself, right? However, in practice, the system has evolved to the point where most of our transactions are treated as commercial liabilities unless we engage directly with the institutions like Federal Reserve to address how our credit is being managed, right? This trend is going to continue to persist. So what I mean when we're directly dealing with institutions like Federal Reserve, those documents I was sharing in yesterday's call, right, on how to change your status, right? We were discussing about the documents we were filing with the IRS. So we were filing specifically the, forms that we needed to claim for power of attorney, 2848, form 56, 56F, 8821. These forms, these types of forms are directly going to the IRS because from that point on, all transactions will be filed through the IRS because who does the IRS go to for a bank? They don't go to Wells Fargo. They don't go to Chase. Who are they going to for the bank? Anyone can answer this one. Who's the IRS dealing with when it comes to banking?
Federal Reserve.
Exactly. So who are we dealing with now? The Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
We're not going to no Chase Bank. We're not going to Wells Fargo. All of this stuff is going straight to the Treasury. Guys, I filled out a form. It's called a Form 888, right? Or it has 4 8s, right? 8888. And this form is one you use for your tax returns, okay? And on the bottom of this form, right? Just want to show it to you guys, right? Form 8888. It tells you here the amount refunded by check. You get to pick what you want, right? You pick the year you want, the year you filed, social name, then you can separate the amount. Let's say you're getting 10,000 back. You could put 5,000 here, 2,500 and get 2,500 via check. Who do you think the check's going to come from? It's going to come from the Federal Reserve, right? It's going to come right from the Treasury. Why? Because a bank isn't creating that. Why? Because the bank has no money. The bank, your check is not coming from a bank. It's coming from the Treasury. These banks have no money, guys. That's why when you look at you actually file your own tax returns, guys, you'll start seeing things like this. Like I didn't realize that I can request it by check. All I knew is that when I'm doing everything electronically, that's all I did, ever since I had my first job, I filed it electronically. And I thought I was doing my own taxes, but I wasn't. I was doing it the lazy way. But who knew that I can receive or anyone can receive their tax refund via check? Right? So Federal Reserve is the one who's going to be now addressing and managing the credit. We are going to now be communicating with them. And guess who's now going to be the trustee? The IRS. Because we're submitting all the proper documentation to the IRS. Because we, the people, can't actually directly go into our trusts. There needs to be a trustee, an intermediary. The key to the trust is the social, right? The key is social. So you got your social security as the key. We go to the bank, we give the social, aka the key, to IRS, and we say, hey, I want 10,000 in tax returns. I file, here's the paperwork that I need. Here's my key. The IRS goes through the paperwork, they pull the 10,000 and they give it to you. But what is all that based and what is that all around, right? It's all around trust. Because you have to now trust that the IRS is going to properly handle your paperwork. All right, that's for one. Second, they're going to get the right amount from your trust and they're going to give it to you. That's all trust. Everything evolves around trust. All right, so trust is the cornerstone of all financial and contractual relationships, guys. It's massive. All right, contracts formalize trust, but not all contracts are trust. All right, and then the Bill of Exchange Act of 1881 was an instrument that facilitated international business by creating standards and rules for transactions, right? Banks primarily manage and transfer securities, but individuals often relinquish their private rights to the system. So it's all given away. We voluntarily gave away. Right now, with this knowledge that you guys are getting today, you are taking the first step to take that power back. And it's not that hard. It's not that hard. All right, understanding the distinction between private credit and commercial transactions. So individuals explore ways to reclaim control over their financial interactions, and private credit versus commercial debt. So the current system benefits from logging transaction as commercial unless private individuals assert their rights. And this is where we're heading, guys. This is key. All right. So on to how a trust works, guys. So you got the grantor. Grantor is going to be, in this case, your all caps name, and you're going to be the trustee, right? Now, although it sounds a little bit weird that your all caps name is the grantor, but if you can't create the trust, right, then who will? You're the only person, right? Because the grantor itself is not a real person. It's a business, all right? You're the trustee, and then you're going to need a beneficiary. So in this case, if you've got a sibling, if you've got a family member that, a cousin that you trust, someone that you can know will have will be there and can be present during the signing, right? You don't want to be adding somebody that, that lives all the way in Nebraska and you live, in Boston. Like they need to be there to sign. So that's going to require them coming to fly out. So feel free to, you leverage someone that's close. I want you guys to also keep in mind that the type of trust that I'm teaching you guys how to create today, the revocable, you can change it a month from now. You could change it 2 months from now. You just have to go through the same process of restructuring it, record the minutes of, the meetings you had with the beneficiary. And what I mean by minutes is you just basically also log in the trust that you had you had one meeting and you discussed these changes. That's all it is. But it's leaving a paper trail of discussions that were had amongst the trustee and the beneficiary. And that's for the people who continue to take on those assets for generations to come. So, if we're talking 2, 3 generations from now, they're going to be able to see all the recorded minutes, what was discussed and where all the transactions happened. Right. And that's how that works. So I want you to think of it like this, right? Think of a trust like a treasure chest, right? The grantor is like the person who owns treasure and it decides to put it in a chest for safekeeping. They choose when and how the treasure will be used and for whom it's intended. The trustee is like the key holder of the chest, right? Their job is to follow the owner's instruction, where in this particular case, the owner is technically it's us, but we're doing it on behalf of the all caps name, which is the company that we're managing. But the company can't do any of this for itself, right? So technically, we are the owners. But on paper, they're considered the grantors, all right? The business is considered the grantor, right? They don't own the treasure, but are responsible for managing it wisely, right? And this is something I want you to remember, guys, is these trustees, these banks that we're going to have them, take our loans for us on our behalf when we apply, are they managing it wisely for you guys? Or they're turning around and lying to you and telling you you don't have any credit or you got denied because you have bad credit? It's crazy, guys. That's because we're logging it as commercial debt. So the beneficiary is like a person who the treasure was set aside. They will receive this treasure at the time or under the conditions set by owner. So in the event, let's say I create one, I pass, and whoever I put as beneficiary, they now take over. Because one, they'll be there and they'll be signed. You can also add additional beneficiaries. So if you want to add 2 more or you want to add 3, you can add as many as you want. You can add 10 people if you want, guys, and layer it just in case. It's all up to you. This is your trust. All right. So they'll receive the treasure or parts of it at the time under the conditions set. All right. So that's really kind of the overview of what a trust is, right? Now that you guys have a general understanding, I've helped really break down the history behind the trust. Now you guys are educated on what a trust is. We're going to go over some of the benefits, right? And in this particular one, I'm not going to get into detail and read everything here, but I'm just going to go over the high overview stuff, right? So the privacy of it, right? There's no registration. So when it comes to having a trust, you can't register it. It's just like your vehicle. If you register your vehicle, it now becomes part of the state. It becomes public record. It goes from being private to public. So if you ever run into a situation where you're creating a trust and they're requiring that you register it, you don't do that, right? Because it's no longer going to be a private nature. It's not going to be a private instrument, right? So you always want to avoid registration, right? It limits public documentation. So basically, the only documents that can be shared in public, guys, are the declaration of trust and trust indentures and declaration and certificate of trust. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of what those look like. So this is a certificate of trust example. I got this here so you guys can see. Let me know if you guys can see that clearly.
Yeah, I can see it clearly.
Perfect. So this is just a certificate of trust. So this is what people can see, guys. Like, it's okay to share this type of document, right? Why? Because it doesn't actually include all of the private matters in the trust, right? So this can be shared. There's also what's called the declaration of the trust, right? Outlines the trust existence and the basic structure, right? So a declaration of trust is similar to the certificate of trust, right? Because both of them are allowed to be shared in public, where the actual trust itself cannot be shared in public and no one can request it. Because if anyone requests it, right, remember it no longer is private. So you're not allowed to share it with them. You share with them, you basically have shared your trust privacy with the public and it's no longer a private matter. Minutes. Remember, I was telling you guys about minutes. Minutes are basically just meetings. So if you met with let's say you have a sibling that you put on your trust and you meet with them and we sat down for 20 minutes, right? We had meeting one, right? Recorded. It was a 20-minute meeting. We discussed transferring this savings account as an additional part of the trust, right? So that's literally a recorded minute. Like you recorded those minutes because you had a meeting, right? You labeled the meeting. You discussed what was shared, and those minutes itself can't be shared either because now you're discussing private matters of the trust, right? You're sharing all of the details that aren't actually on the declaration and certificate of trust. And because you're sharing that private information, you're now making it public. So you are not to share that. So these two documents, the declaration of trust and a declaration and certificate of trust, in order to prove that they truly exist, you just have to get them notarized, right? No copy making. No one can make copies other than you. So when you go to a notary, you're only going to the notary to sign in front of the notary to prove that it is you who signed it. That's what a notary's for. The notary isn't going to read the documents. You're going to the notary to simply sign in front of the notary because the notary is there to witness you signing it, right? You're the live person signing it. And because you're the live person signing it, they are now confirming. And that is now an official document. Now, no one can say that this isn't your trust. You had an official notary there to witness you signing it, and it was you. And they usually, when you go and get a notary, you got to hand in an ID, and the ID is to just prove who you are, and that also makes it official. Okay. And like I said here, any trust information guy, they can't take it without a warrant. They need a warrant in order to get access to your private information. Remember, guys, you're changing and becoming a private individual. No longer going to be operating in the public. When you start taking these steps, Step one, get a trust. Step two, EIN, private bank account, right? And from there, we're going to start filing notices with the IRS. Now we're going to start letting the IRS know, like, hey, I'm private now. I'm a live person. Here's my documents. I got my trust. I got my power of attorney, my fiduciary notice, right? You know, your freedom, guys, is on the other side of paperwork, not on the other side of money. And I'm going to say that every single time. Our freedom is on the other side of paperwork and not on the other side of money. Because we are the money. We just don't know how to get it. It's the first step. Right? Now, I won't go into detail with like the notes, right? On how to edit the notes of the trust. But again, I'm just giving you another example of how recording meetings, right? I have all the details here, so I recommend you guys go through and read this. So I've taken all this information and I've simplified it as much as possible for you guys. So you're not having to read through hours of material, because that's really what I did. I've gone through like hours and hours of material to get a lot of this information, and I've also implemented a lot of it. And this is where I'm getting a lot of this my information from. Okay. So I just want to be able to simplify it for you guys as much as possible. But my goal for this call is um, I want to finish going through and explaining what the remainder of each trust is, what types of trusts they are, and then we're going to get right into creating one, right? So that you guys can have that on video. All right, so we went over the structure. You need your grantor, your trustees, and the beneficiaries. And the use of the trust is to keep private operations, right? It prevents you from sharing information about the trust by presenting, the declaration of trust and a certificate of trust, right? Those those documents have very minimal details, and they just basically outline that, hey, I have an existing trust and I'm notifying you, and these are my official documents proving that I have a trust. You don't need to actually show them the actual trust. That actual trust is yours. Right? Preserves legal integrity. So, for example, you guys run into situations where, if you have a house right now and you wanted to go to your kids, something happens to you tomorrow. Usually, what happens is the government steps in because it's public. Now it goes to probate. Guess what your children have to do? They have to hire lawyers, go to court, spend money just to get the property. It's crazy. I'm telling you, that stuff happens. They call it probate, right? You have to do all of that stuff just to get what's yours, or just for your kids to get what's yours. So in order to prevent that, simply create the trust, right? You create the trust and you now have the ability to pass this down without your kids having to worry about spending money, or your significant other, whoever it's going to, have to deal with the public, right? It's your matter now, right? Saves you time and energy, or your kids time and energy. And adaptability, right? So it's cool to have these things because, one, you can restructure it however many times you need to, depending on the type of trust. And it helps with taxes, it helps with asset protection, right? And really creating generational wealth. So that's the basic overview of the privacy of the trust. So I'm going to briefly go over the irrevocable trust, right? Now, I'm not going to read through all of this, but I'm going to go over the very basic general idea of what an irrevocable trust is. And I'm going to use this here as an analogy. And I love using analogies because it helps paint different pictures. So I want you to think of an irrevocable trust like a time locked safe where the owner, which is the grantor, places its valuables into it, right? So once you lock this safe, the owner can no longer open it or change what's inside. And the valuables in this safe no longer are part of the owner's possession. So if you want to partake in these possessions, you want to partake in the house or whatever you put into it, don't put it in the irrevocable. Why? Because once you create one, you can't change it. Whoever you said it's going to, it's going to. Like, that's it. So that's why we're creating a revocable, because a revocable, you can move around, you can adjust, do whatever you need to. But irrevocable, right? It's no longer in the owner's possession, right? This also helps avoid things like taxes, which may have been applied, of the items that are still in the owner's hands. Not even creditors can come access what's inside it. Guys, once it's irrevocable, it's created, whatever you're setting aside for, to pass down to your kids or your children's children, guys, no one can touch. Like, it's locked and sealed, right? You can go to sleep after you've created one of those. You have nothing to worry about, right? All of its assets are 100% protected. And when it comes to creating an irrevocable trust, I recommend you have a little bit of money set aside because you need an attorney for this one, right? Because the structural and all of the specifics, complexities that it comes with, you have to be prepared for. All right, we're talking about if you're putting your house in there, it's got to be structured specifically, and the lawyer is going to walk you through what needs to be done so it's bulletproof. because it's an irrevocable trust, right? So the instructions to set up the safe must follow exact rules, right? Especially since different states may have different assumptions about whether a safe like this can be unlocked or not, right? So it also can depend on the state, but most irrevocable trusts you just can't touch. And I don't know which states allow it, but I know most of them don't. The owner is still responsible for paying the maintenance costs. So, depending on really what you have in there, like some people don't really have much. They can have some savings accounts or even a house. Um, right? Income taxes on the trust assets. But again, when it comes to taxes on the private side, guys, it's handled differently, right? And I'll be teaching that later on, how to handle that stuff with taxes, how to pay taxes the right way. But they can't take the money out of the safe to cover those costs. All right. Only a receipt or certificate is given to prove the safe existence. So you can, it's almost like you go into the grocery store and you buy a bunch of groceries and they're like, "Oh, well, I want you to prove that you bought all this stuff." Right? How do you prevent them from seeing what's on the receipt with type of items? You can just show the bank statement, right? The bank statement with the transaction that only tells you where it was purchased from and the amount, right? And when you do that, you're protecting all of the details, right? You don't want them to see you purchase, a speaker or a microwave or whatever, but you're simply keeping a receipt, and that's what that certificate is. And that certificate, basically, it's one you're gonna have for all types of trusts, right? Your land, your irrevocable and revocable, right? So, in short, revocable trust is a permanent locked arrangement designed to safeguard assets and reduce taxes, with strict rules to follow and privacy regarding how your assets are managed. So, hence why I encourage a lot of you guys to create a revocable versus an irrevocable, because this is one that if you plan not to, you don't want to deal with any of that stuff and you intentionally know that you want that to be for, your child or a significant other, whoever it may be, then irrevocable is appropriate. But also keep in mind it's going to cost money. The revocable, we're going to teach you how to do that for free, for $0 today. All right. So again, I'm going to skip through all these details. This is for you guys to read. This is why I simplify the material for you guys. I go over pros and cons of what these trusts are, how they protect you. It's all basic, but long story short, a revocable trust is similar to irrevocable. Only difference is you can change it, right? That's to keep it short. You can change it however many times you need to. Land trust is very different. It's very particular. Land trust is one that you are using if you have assets, like for example, a house, right? And I've created an example, a photo example here for you guys to see that if you have a house, right? If you have a house, you want to put it on a land trust. Now, when you have that land trust created, right, you want to put that house in an LLC. And now that LLC is going to be owned by the land trust and managed by the land trust. This is how you protect the house. Because by simply having a land trust, you may not be protecting the house. You want to create an LLC. Then once you create an LLC, you then can transfer ownership to the trust, the land trust. Now you have two layers. Now it's even harder to try to take away a house. But the reason why you want to create a land trust for assets like real estate is for the simple fact that they're structured very specifically and they protect it a little bit differently. All right. The details I want you guys to go through and review, but to simplify for you guys, right? In order for you to successfully create a land trust, you must have an LLC if you have a house, right? Right? And you want to put that house in the LLC. Once you put the house in the LLC, you now transfer ownership of that LLC to your trust. That all make sense so far?
Yeah, it did with me.
Perfect. All right. Now we're gonna get right out to the fun stuff, guys. Right? I know a lot of you are waiting for this fun stuff. I went through all the boring material, everything that no one wants to know. I'm on the same boat, guys. Right? I don't want to learn any of this stuff, but I'm gonna be fully transparent, right? I'm not working in the matrix anymore. I'm tired of being in the matrix. So I'm gonna force myself to learn this information. I'm gonna get good at it so I can teach you this stuff. But now that we went over the boring stuff, we're gonna get all to the fun stuff, right? Now I'm gonna show you step by step how you're gonna create your trust. Okay. So here in the beginning, guys, I'm just going over the basics, general overview, right? Because you're gonna go to the create your first trust tab and you're doing this. And I basically just go over the specifics, formalities. You don't need a birth certificate to do this, guys, right? It's not required. You only need like an ID when you're going to get a notary. That's it, right? You can use driver's license or a passport, all right? Whatever you decide to get a notary. Next, we're gonna go to Law Depot. All right, we're going to Law Depot, and I want you guys to create an account, right? I share here step by step. Create your free account, put your email, password. Very easy, guys. You're gonna create a revocable living trust because you're gonna search that in the search box, right? So we're gonna search trust, and then we're gonna create a revocable living trust. Remember, this is free 7 days. So once you create this account, have like a 7-day trial to it, create your trust, take care of all your documents, and if you don't want to pay, I think it's like $30 a month or something, you can cancel it before it. Because that's what I did. I created my documents, I canceled it. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and start creating my trust. John, right? John. All right. I'm going to pretend that's my all caps name. And I live in, say, Boston, right? Continue. Will you have control and assets in the living trust? Will you control the asset? And you want to hit yes, right? The reason why is because if you hit no, it's going to turn into a irrevocable, right? Full name of the trustee, right? I remember this is the successor trustee, right? Who will manage the trust if you become incapacitated or pass away, right? In this case, guess who it is? It's you still. Why? Because remember, the grantor in the very beginning was the all caps name, which is the company, right? So here you're going to format this in the same format I share with you guys, right? Same format I share with you guys here, right? First, middle, last, just like this format, right? I'm going to put this here just for now. You're going to do it just like that. You're going to do, say, John with the dash, Jacob Jones. You live in the same place, right? Is it all making sense so far, guys? The grantor is your all caps name. You are the trustee. Now, what it means by incapacitated is if the grantor, for some odd reason, passes away, but is the grantor right now alive? No. Right? The all caps name, it doesn't live, right? It doesn't have a heart. It's dead. So, because it's incapacitated right now, we are the trustees already. And that's why we control it. Go ahead, Selena.
So I know that I'm the trustee, and I know that the all caps name is like basically not me. So the name that you just put in on the line, that's like basically I just type in my real name. It's just the dashes is like confusing me with the.
I'm gonna explain to you why the dashes are there. The dashes are there so there doesn't create confusion on who is a trust and trustee. Your all caps name is not gonna have any dashes or any special characters, right? It's gonna be strictly your all caps name is gonna be strictly all caps, and it's gonna be its name. This is what's separating you. This is what is now you're writing your name out differently because you are different from the corporation.
Okay, all right. Okay.
That's why it's a little bit different. And that's why when everyone else is filling out their name, they're filling it out in this format because of the simple fact that if you continue to claim the name, you're going to write it like it is, right? They're sending you your name in all caps, right? I want you to if any of you have an LLC, look at your LLC documents. Your LLC documents are literally going to be your LLC in all capital. Every corporation is capitals. That's what I want you guys to understand. If any of you create an LLC, you're going to see that the name is capital. So we're separating it, the capital from our real name, right? Who we create the name to be. And we're using this specific format because that's the format we are using, right? To separate us. And that's why we're doing that. Is that all making sense to anyone, everyone? Hopefully I didn't lose anyone. All right, perfect. That was a good question. Do you have a spouse? If you do, you would hit yes. In this case, we're just going to do no. Who will inherit the assets in your trust? You'll put person, you can put business, charity. If you guys want to donate it, you can donate it, right? All your assets. But we're going to do a person. So we're going to do Mike, right? Same format. Jacob. Right? If it's your kids, you can click your kids are a minor. And if there's other people you want to add, you can just hit add another beneficiary. No, the house doesn't have to be paid off and put in a trust. You can buy a house tomorrow and start putting it in a trust. It's a good question. All right. Now we hit continue. Now, alternate beneficiary, right? Do you want to name another alternate beneficiary? So let's say Mike, for some reason, something happens to him, you can put someone else, right? Say you want to do a cousin or you do another sibling, you can just simply hit yes, right? And it'll let you add an alternative beneficiary, right? Which is okay. But in this case, for example purposes, we're just going to do one, right? We're just going to hit next. What assets do you plan to transfer? Right? All the types. So, for example, let's say you have a house. Right? It gives you examples down here too. So you can basically claim the house that you live in, right? Like the street you live in. So let's say house at 150 Chelmsford Road, Boston, Mass. I'm just putting random info, guys. So I'm gonna add this. Now added the house, savings account. Right? Personal property, gold and silver in my safe, right? Like you can be specific, like just get into detail, right? Like it says here, provide details and accurate description of personal property. All right. Vehicles are typically not transfers to avoid complications with registration and insurance. So if you're going to transfer a vehicle, guys, it can't be registered with the state because that's public. Remember, everything you're doing here is private, right? When you bought your gold, it's private. It's not registered with the state. So this is why I'm telling you guys got to claim and do different things, right? Absolutely. I'll be posting this recording once we're done with this, guys, and you guys can have this for reference. But hopefully this is helpful right now because I'm giving you guys a real life example of how to do it. And then, you know, business partnership, etc. Other. So here you can put social. Why are you adding your social security number? Because it's a business.
That is a business.
It's a business. You understand? And if you're not gonna add that as something, because everything in this business is going to your kids, guys. You're separate. You are not the all caps name. It's a business, and you're gonna add social. And any other assets, guys, right? Any other assets you can think of. I'm just going over just the general basics, right? So you can't use a checking account. It has to be savings, right? It has to be savings account. Everything has to be savings. Now we want to save and continue. Do you want to give anything from your living trust? So what that means, guys, is do you want to like donate it? Basically, you want to give it away. And if you do, it'll ask you for specifics. What are you gifting the asset to? So if, for example, you want to hand over the asset to um you want to hand over the savings account to your the beneficiary, you can add that. You want to add the rest of the items to them. You want to give the house as well, or if you want to also give um the social security number assets, if you also want to add the gold, right? You can also name an alternative, right? And this is if you have alternatives, but because we don't right now, right? If you had 4 or 5 people in there, you can separate it. You can give different people different things in your trust. Remember, this is your guys' trust. You kind of decide how you want to set it up. Like, who do I want to gift my stuff to? So let's say I have a house right now. You know, I want to give it to my first son, or I want to give it to my second middleborn, or my third, whatever you guys decide you want to do. And then the gold can go to the first. You know, all of this is really up to you, but I'm just walking you guys through how the distribution looks, right? This is what gifting is. It's like who you want to give these items to. All right. Do you want your final taxes and debts to be paid out of the living trust? Yeah, you want to pick yes, because all of it's going to come out of the trust. Remember, your trust is what has all the money, and your trust will be paying for the taxes. Remember, paying taxes isn't you paying money with your own money, but you're paying taxes to the trust. Do you want your funeral costs and other final expenses to be paid out of your living trust? Of course. Why not? It's your trust. All right. Save and continue. Pour over will. So what a pour over will is basically any assets that you're just like don't quite think of right now. And you know, just in case that you want to later on down, you know, you can create a pour over trust will, which is like, hey, in the event that this happens, I want to also transfer this to this person. Like it's a pour over trust. Or it's similar to the gift, right? But when you read these instructions, it's going to tell you exactly what it is, right? It's used when someone has a living trust. It transfers any remaining property into the trust upon your death and allows you to name an executor, right? And if you select yes, the pour over will be included in your living trust. So it's going to be an additional paper page on the trust if you want to create also a pour over will. A pour over will, like I said, is a just in case. That's what it is. But remember, if you don't create one now, the good thing about this is you can go back and recreate it all, right? It's a revocable trust. So it's very flexible. You guys can come back, change it. If you realize you may need a pour over will, you can go back and create one. I would recommend to create a pour over will because it's technically a will, it's a living will, right? When will you sign? You could put unsure, Massachusetts, notary public. You can do one witness and notary public, or you could do just notary public. I would do notary public. It's really up to you. I mean, if you have two beneficiaries on there, you could just put two witnesses, and they can also be the witness when you're signing. But signing in front of notary public means, official watches you sign the documents and verifies its identity. This step deters fraud and gives the document an extra layer of verification, right? So it's really up to you at this point. But in this case, I will recommend notary public only. Easier, don't have to do anything extra, and it's sufficient. It's strong. Boom. Guess who now has a trust? Guys, it fills everything out for you. Look at this.
Easier than I thought.
You get what I'm saying? Now you guys have a trust. So we went through, we filled it out. It was free. You guys, we didn't spend that much time at all. It took longer for me to explain everything to you than for you guys to do the trust. Right? So here, I want to select the free trial. Right? Free trial. Let me put my card stuff in here. Oh crap. I'll block that out later. But anyways, as you can see, this is free. How much did I pay?
None, yeah.
$0. Now we're going to continue. Now you want to get access to your revocable trust. Right? Want to get access to it? We're going to print it or download it. Download as PDF, right? You can go back and re-edit it, guys. Right? It's really easy to do it here. I recommend, when you take the time to create the trust, give yourself some time. You don't want to be any delays because remember, you're taking advantage of a free opportunity to create a trust. I don't even remember what the cost was. I think it was like $30 a month to have the official one. So, or you just can recreate a new one with another email. But this is what the editor looks like. You guys can go back and edit this however many times you want. See what I'm saying? Click on it, change it. All right, it's up to you. I want to exit. Now we're going to go back to download. All right. Now you see that I've saved this on my laptop, guys. I've shown you guys today how to create your own very first trust, and it did not take very long. Again, this call will be recorded. It has been recorded, and I will be posting it for you guys. Just give me some time to get it uploaded and everything. But it's 14 pages. As you can see, it goes over everything here that is in the trust. These are the details that you should not be sharing with anybody, right? Now, this is an example trust, of course, so I don't have anything like private on here, but if this was my personal trust, I wouldn't be sharing it with anybody, even if I was teaching you, right? Because ultimately, this type of trust is private. No one can know about it other than the beneficiaries, right? And then here on the bottom, you would sign, right? So you would print this document, then you would fill it out and then sign it in front of the notary. So you don't sign it before you go to the notary. You got to sign it at the notary, right? And this is the part it prints for the notary. And then as you can see, the Schedule A is what the grantor is assigning, right? It's assigning all the personal belongings to whoever you gave it to, right? The social security number, gold and silver in my safe, right? Savings account, the house at this location, right? Is that all pretty cool, guys? Like, how many of you thought it was harder than that?
A lot more difficult than I thought. That's just
Hey,
like easy
right?
mode. Yeah.
Crazy creating a trust. So, like, you know, trust is a game changer and you need these documents. So, again, I will do what I can to, I'll screenshot a bunch of these and I will add them to the campus so you guys can have a reference, can compare and contrast, but also have this video too, right? My goal is to give you guys the blueprint, right? Like hand it all over to you. Now, I also post this example of a certificate of trust, right? What a certificate of trust looks like, because this certificate of trust is what you can present to the public, right? This is what other people can really see. Like you can send this into the Secretary of State, the Attorney General's office, but these documents you cannot. What you're doing is you're simply going to the notary, and the notary isn't going to read through this. The notary is just going to be there to witness you sign. They're not reading this document. Okay? They're not making any copies of this document. They're just there for you to sign. So you're going to take your trust document, your certificate of trust, you get both of those notarized. And once those are notarized, we're on to the next step, right? This is the fun part. I told you I would go over this yesterday. And this is also going to be a 5-minute lesson, okay? So now that we've covered all of this, we've gone through the steps, right? We're going to take the trust agreement, certificate of trust to the bank notary near you before signing. And then now we go right to the IRS and we're going to get our EIN. So I'm going to try today to go over the EIN really quickly and show you step by step to give you a video example. So you can have this for reference. But I'm going to try not to create an EIN because then I'm just creating a false EIN, right? So we're going to trusts. We went to EIN. We went to the link in EIN, right? Went to irs.gov, create EIN. I want to hit continue. Then we're going to go click revocable trust, right? We're going to hit continue. Right now, remember, I'm creating it for this person, right? Our all caps name, John Jacob Jones, all right? John. And you don't even have to put all caps because it's already going to come out all caps. All right, 1, 2, 3. Boom, put your social, right? The one that was given to you. So the social is technically your EIN, but they call it a social, but it's an EIN, guys. Ah, crap. It won't let me do it, guys. All right. So I have to put an actual social in there, but which I'm not gonna do. So once you put your social in there, what's gonna end up happening, guys, is you put your social, it will take you to the next step to put your information for your trust, right? Like the address. So you're gonna just put your home address, right? I see a lot of people use things like virtual addresses and stuff. Just put your home address. I'm gonna explain to you why. Because in the other documents you're going to fill out, you can also include that you're in care of that location. You're in care, right? So I'm just going to show you a quick example of what I mean. Mm-mm. If I can find it. Not, that's cool. Yeah, I'll just show you. I'll type it in. So when you're putting in the address, right? Crap, I can't put it on there. I'm just gonna put it on notes. So when you're putting on the address, you're gonna put C-O and then the address. So 123 Boston Street. That's how you're gonna basically, when you're filling out your IRS documents, you put in care of, but put your home address, right? But before any document, you're always gonna put C/O because technically you don't reside there anymore because you're private. You're in care of that location because that location is public still, right? That location is currently public, so you're no longer part of that public location. You're in care of that public location, meaning you can still live there, but on paper, you're in care of it. Hopefully that makes sense because um, when it comes to language, guys, and technicality, like I'm just simplifying a lot of this stuff for you. Like you guys haven't had to really read a lot of this, but the words you use, man, it's all sorcery. It's sorcery. So if you don't use the right words, just like lawyers, right? It could be used against you. Go ahead, Selena.
So when you say like I'm in care of the home, like I'm like taking care of it, like I'm like over it. But
Mm-hmm.
okay. All right.
Because technically you are, right? You're not part of that residence. You're just in care of it.
Right. Okay. Okay.
When you claim to be part of it, you're claiming to be public. That makes sense?
Yeah, kind of like my all caps name. Like it's like
Yeah, you're in
the
care of your
business
all caps
wise.
name, literally. Like you're the
Yeah.
trustee. Like,
Right.
because no one else is gonna take care of it. No one's gonna take care of the bills. No one's gonna make sure, you know, someone uses its credit to pay its obligations. Like no one's managing it, right? The LLC is just gonna burn, right? You open up a LLC, guys, and you don't do anything with it, it's really no good. So you're in care of. You're the one taking care of it. Awesome. So yeah, I wish I could have showed you guys the end of that, but unfortunately, nope. But I've given you guys enough to get out and really run with this. So the last step is opening up a trust bank account. You need a certificate of trust, a declaration of trust. I wouldn't say you need the agreement of trust. Um, you really just need these two here, these three. Let me just change that so I don't confuse you guys. 'Cause all that stuff is in there. All that stuff is in the certificate and declaration. And remember, when you present these documents, no one's making copies of any of this stuff, guys. The only one you can send is the certificate. The
Aren't
original.
those aren't those steps in the modules too? Like just filling out the trust. Like isn't it in the module?
Yeah, all these steps are in here. I'm gonna place the video in the campus once this call is done, but um so that you guys can have something to reference. But when it comes to once you've created the trust, guys, you can do this following the trust. You can create a bank account, a private bank account, right? When you create the private bank account, it's super private. All right, and I cover all of this stuff. And in this particular case, guys, you're gonna need Social Security 4, which is a very specific form. But next week, guys, right? Today we went over trusts. I know we also covered how to change your status in the last time's call, but it wasn't as instructed and as detailed as this one. I want to do the same thing I did today for all the documents you guys need to fill out. That sound cool? So I'm gonna be literally going through all of the documentations, like for example, this like an SS4, and I'll step by step fill these out just like this with you guys on video. And so that you guys can see how I filled mine out, right? And I'll be able to guide you on one, how to really look at these documents, where to find the instructions so that you guys have all the tools you need to successfully do this stuff, right? Now also remember guys, like I'm teaching you guys this stuff based off of what I've done and what's worked. If you're still uncertain, that's why I encourage you guys to also read the instructions a lot of these documents come with, right? So let me give you an example. So if you wanted to get an idea of the, SS4 form instructions, it's all here, right? Now, some of it is quite a bit to read, right? It's quite a bit to read. For some of you who are, still really trying to get a grasp of the legalese and understand this, right? I recommend you do this, right? You could take this information, right? You can copy it, right? You can copy it just like this. And I encourage every single one of you to do this because why? It's important to have a general understanding of this information. You can use DeepSeek or ChatGPT.
Oh, I never heard of that one. That one's nice.
This just rolled out as a Chinese AI software. I've been going crazy with it. So now I can say simplify the following instructions on the SS4 form using the following information, right? And you can say simplify the information for a 15-year-old to understand. I say that because it'll simplify it for that specific reason. So I'm going to take that first section of that SS4 instruction. I'm going to throw it right in here. It's going to do its thing, guys. And it's legitimately going to simplify it. Boom. So now, looking at these instructions, right, rather than trying to decipher a lot of this stuff, right, you can use AI to simplify it for you. So it's faster, more comprehensible because guys, I understand the language is tough. It's taken me, I've been doing this for like a year and a half now. My brain still hurts reading some of this stuff. Right? So it's going to take time and leverage these tools. So this literally just broke it down what a SS4 form is, right? And I'm not going to get through all these details again because I just went through a whole lesson with you guys, but I'm just showing you how it simplified that, right? It went through and it gave you very specifics, right? What it is, how it works, what's changed, what's important, right? And it's also summarizing this. So you can do that, right? How to apply for this, what it is, what does a document mean? If you guys don't know what it is, you don't understand what it is, as much as you can leverage me for, I still encourage you guys to also do your own research because it's only gonna give you guys the muscle memory you need to deal with them. Because I can't be on the phone with IRS for you guys, right? When you're calling IRS to follow up on your documents, like you should have a solid understanding of, hey, I submitted this document. This is supposed to, do this. This is why I need this. You have the grounds to and all the tools you need to have dialogue with the IRS and follow up on your documents, right? And that's the key there. So now that I've gone through all of that information, guys, Who has questions for me?
I have one really quick. Do when I'm on the phone with IRS, like I understand that we have to like know what we're talking about, but do we have to use like law words or like
No,
okay,
you
I
don't have
just
to
want to
use
make sure.
any law word. That's a good question.
Okay.
No, you asked a really good question, Selena. Um, no, you don't need to use law words, guys. And you've experienced this, Selena. You've called the credit bureaus and you've
Right.
dealt. Some of them are helpful, some of them are not. Some of them know what they're doing, some of them don't. Same thing with the IRS.
Yeah, I just don't want to say the wrong thing, you know.
Yeah, and all you can say is when you're following it with certain information, which you're not gonna need to as much as you will with like a credit bureau. It just depends on your situation. So if you're following up on a tax purpose, or if they had questions and they wanted to follow up on why you filled out certain information on a document, then just simply answer it. But with the IRS, you're not really arguing with them for any reason. A lot of it just comes down to the paperwork. If it wasn't submitted correctly, find out what was missing and go from there. Because remember, everything that the IRS wants you to do, they've already instructed you to do. They've told you how to fill out the documents. A lot of people like to call him the bad guy. I'm like, I don't know any bad guy that literally gives you the answers on how to fill out a document. Like if the IRS had paperwork, if the
Yeah.
IRS had paperwork that they want you to submit, but they didn't even tell you how they want you to submit it, all right, that makes sense. They're not being fair, but they literally tell you what to put on which line, uh, and state what at which time and what's changed. They tell you everything, but a lot of people don't read, and that's why everyone thinks the IRS is a bad guy, right? Does the IRS um do they follow up on you if you don't pay your taxes or file your taxes? Oh hell yeah. If you're a US citizen, damn right they're gonna follow up with you. You're a US citizen. You're a business. You better pay your taxes. All right. When you're a private, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. You still have to file your tax. You also have to file your taxes, guys. Filing your taxes is not the same as paying your taxes. You can get away with paying your taxes, but filing them, you're not getting away with. A lot of people have that idea confused, right? Because you have people who evade taxes, right? There's tax evasion, and then there's just getting away with not paying taxes, right? Things like Donald Trump does. He gets away with not paying them because he knows the rules of the game. He knows the tax codes. He read the tax codes. He knows where to put money where and how to use it and where to move it so that when he uses it, it's not taxed.
Right, I understand. Thank
You
you.
know what I'm saying? It's like he'll make this type of money. Like I was just I believe I was giving David this example the other day. You can literally create a you can have stocks and make money on those stocks and you can move it into a trust. And depending on how you structured your trust, right, you can move it in there without paying capital gains. And then depending on how you pull it out, you can avoid paying anything on it. But the option is there. But if you were to move it to a private or public bank account, oh, they're smoking you. They're smoking you on the taxes and they're smoking you on capital gains. But because you're moving it to a private bank, it's handled a lot different. It's no longer the same. So, but the key and the ticket to doing all this stuff, guys, is writing what I taught you today, right? And my goal is I hope you guys start implementing this stuff like this month, right? I want you guys to start because I just taught you how to do it for completely free. It doesn't take long. You go through the hour video and just do it. And once you do it, you go to the notary with whoever your beneficiary is, get it nice and signed. You got your trust, open up a bank account. Now you're like step one of moving towards the actual freedom side, the private side. All right. Cool. Hope you guys enjoyed that call. That was I know it went a little bit over time, but I wanted to make sure you guys got all the value. Was that helpful, guys? Was it easy to understand? I know you asked your
Yes,
questions
it was
along the way.
good.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. The next class that we're gonna go over, guys, is um the document section, right? So we're gonna go over the specifics of how to start changing your status. All right, we're gonna revisit that next weekend, this upcoming weekend. And I'm excited because the end goal is discharging debt, my people. That's the end goal. All right.
Yep. Thank you so much.
And I'm excited. Um, I want you guys to start, endorsing checks in the future and discharging debts. That's true freedom, guys. Now we're doing things through the system the right way. But before I was teaching you guys how to endorse checks. I was teaching you all the right things. We're just sending it to the wrong person. It needs to go to the IRS. All right. Awesome. Well, it's been a
Yep.
pleasure, guys.
You have a wonderful night.
Y'all have a great night.
Thank you, Eric.
Pleasure. You guys
Pleasure.
take care. I'll see you on, this week's call later on this week, and we'll keep diving deep. I'll announce the specific topics we're gonna cover. So you guys, can plan for it. But in the meantime, I'm grateful for you guys and have a blessed night.
You too. Have a blessed night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.